From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Ticats Today with Braden Neville.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Ticats Today for this Friday, August the 18th, 2023. The weekend is finally here. However, it won't be a great weekend for the Hamilton Ticats as they suffered a tough loss to the Edmonton Elks last night. And on today's episode, Coach O speaks about that disappointing loss to the Elks, and Coach Sal will be on the show to break down the game with me. But first, let's get to some news around the team. Pretty obvious what that news is. The Ticats suffered a loss last night to the Edmonton Elks, giving Edmonton their first win of the season, and there's really no way to sugarcoat it. It wasn't a pretty one. Hamilton fell 24-10 to the now 1-9 Elks, and it was a really weird game all around with a long weather delay before the second half. And I think the weirdest part about the weather delay was that it was called before there was any lightning in sight. There was no rain, and for a while there I was wondering when this storm was going to come. People were confused, didn't really know what was happening, but as it turns out, the CFL made the right call because a quick but heavy storm rolled in over Hamilton and Tim Hortons Field, and it was absolutely pouring. There was lightning. It was definitely worth waiting for. We didn't want to see the crowd cheering on their team in a full-blown storm, but the game did eventually return after about an hour or so delay. And when the game did return, both teams were pretty cold, and it showed with 0 points in that third quarter between both of them. In the end, the Ticats just couldn't really get much going and were unable to get back from that first half lead the Elks built, scoring just 1 point in the second half. A disappointed Coach O spoke about the team's performance following the game last night.
Right, Coach, tough loss there. Just what are your thoughts following that one?
Yeah, just not good enough. No thoughts. Disappointed. All the emotions that you feel when you lose. Yeah, frustrated. That's it.
And just with that weather delay, just how much did that affect you guys?
None. The weather delay was the same for both teams. I like the way the defense responded in the second half. Came out, got some good stops. The wind and the rain obviously had a play in this football game. Same for both teams, but the weather delay didn't have any bearing.
And that McAllister touchdown gets called back. How much do you feel that kind of killed momentum at all?
Well, yeah, that's twice against that team where we've had a touchdown, and I don't even know if we had a penalty in the first half. I think we had none, so that was a hard address that we had, and then we take 2 on 1 play, and that's not conducive to winning when you're in a game like that. I thought that was a chance to seize momentum. The offense tried to get it a little bit that back, but couldn't convert on field goals to get it to a 1-score game. It was going to be that type of night. Yeah, I'd say that didn't help momentum at all. Yeah, it just didn't. Sometimes you're off. We were dealing with kicker. We were dealing with a new holder. There's no excuses. The ball's got to go through the uprights. It's unfortunate. Just not a great game for him to be off. Yeah, not good enough. Not conducive to winning when you're going to be in a game like this, where they're going to run the ball, they're going to limit the throws that their quarterback is going to make. We got to do a job. If they're going to drive the ball, they got to get field goals, and that's the type of game, and that's fine. We're not a football team that's going to blow people out. That's proven. Currently, so we're going to have to find a way to win close games, and when you give up those type of points early, it's not good enough. Yeah, we got beat. We got beat a couple times. One time I think we were in 7-man protection. I got to look at the tape, but when we're trying to limit our drop back passes, and I thought Scott did a good job of that. But there are times you're going to have to drop back and throw the football, and when you do, you're going to have to protect. And when you don't, I do like that he didn't turn the ball over. He didn't force anything. But sometimes when you sit in there, that's going to happen. So, we had turned the ball over a little bit, and that was a point of emphasis that we didn't want to do that. So I thought he did a decent, him being a Taylor, I thought he did a decent job tonight.
That was Coach O on last night's performance. It's now about that time I bring on my guest, Coach Sal, to break down this game. Coach, as much as I want to be positive here, there's not really a whole lot to be positive about in this game. The team struggled in basically all three phases of the game. What are your initial thoughts on the performance from the team?
Well, the first thing I would say is you got to give a lot of credit to Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
Edmonton came ready to play, and we knew with Trey Ford at the quarterback, it was going to be a difficult game for the defense. Overall, like you said, I thought there was failure in the missed kicks in the ball game, which cost them. There was a major penalty on a run back McAllister had for a touchdown,
Yeah.
in which that one was brought back. Overall, they only had 4 penalties, but where those penalties occurred really caused a problem. And again, you only get about an average of 12 possessions per game. And when you give up 7 sacks, as we know, sacks are touchdown killers. They stop drives. And so one half of your offense was given up in the sack category.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of reasons for the sacks. Some of it was Powell holding on to the football. Some of it was offensive line. Some of it was receivers. So overall, the offense didn't fare well. Defensively, we've become a very poor tackling team.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe that we struggle in that area. And second to that, I think within our secondary, we're having trouble when we get in man situations. We're giving up big plays, touchdowns in man situations. So, and there was one touchdown drop. Trey Ford dropped the ball in on Lewis. That was Lewis simply dropped the ball. That would have been a touchdown right there. So, in a short synopsis, we just didn't play well.
I'm going to start here with that defense and that secondary. I believe 2 plays in a row or 2 drives in a row. You have a 45-yard play, and then you have a 47-yard play made by the Elks there on their offense. Just what do you see with this secondary that you think maybe should change here?
Well, it's not for me to make the changes, but if it were, we need one more corner. We need a wide side corner, and we need Leonard to get back into that open halfback position.
Mm-hmm.
In as much as he's probably the best defensive player we have in the secondary, obviously, and we're playing him at a corner position. To me, you need more help on the inside, and again, once we get into those man situations, we don't seem to handle those, which then if you're going to blitz and cover zero, meaning that everybody has man-for-man coverage, that's where we're getting hurt. Mm-hmm. And so, maybe you have to make some adjustments in your play call and want to go more zone in that secondary. Again, I don't know. It's not my call.
The defense is one thing, but the offense has to play well to make the defense make mistakes. What was Edmonton doing well in that game to make those long yardage plays?
Well, not only the long yardage plays, but they kept the ball moving. Mm-hmm. In the first quarter against the wind, Hamilton had very few chances on offense. I think we only had a couple of possessions on offense where Edmonton controlled the clock and controlled the time and put points on the board. And we knew that Trey Ford would run with the football. So there was the idea that we had to spy on him and take him out of the game. At the same time, Hamilton defensive line used to be so good against the rush. And Brown, again, had another big game in the rushing category. A lot of that is the play action pass responsibilities, which Trey Ford does a great job of.
We'll switch to the offense here. Only 10 points and only 1 point in that second half alone. Not much going on there for the offense. But what did you see that maybe was the issue with getting touchdowns in this game and having those long drives?
Well, a couple of things come up. First of all, we didn't push the ball vertically in the ball game very much. There were a couple of corner routes that were really good. I thought White played well on the offensive side. I think he had 100 yards or so receiving. I looked down here; he's got 9 for 101.
Yeah.
So White, came to play in that game. But there were some drops by those receivers too. I remember a couple of those that were right on the money that were dropped. Up front, we just never did control Cessna and Leonard on the line of scrimmage. And I thought Powell never really settled in. I never saw him really be able to sit down in the pocket and make a read and throw the ball downfield. Whether he was not seeing the field, whether or not his receivers were getting into open areas, at the same time, we were getting pressured. And you saw him, start moving around in the pocket. We talk about sliding in the pocket to get away from pressure. Well, every time he tried to do that, it seemed like somebody was in his face. Mm-hmm. So, he really never got comfortable in what he was doing. I was pleased with the running game.
Yes, very.
Butler again had a great night. Butler was 14 carries, 114 yards. He had 3 receptions for another 32, so 146 on 17 touches. That's a good night for a running back.
Yeah, for any running back around the league would want numbers like that. Now, Powell, you touched on him there, 20 for 26, no touchdowns, no interceptions in this game. All in all, I thought he had his ups and downs in the game, but all in all, his performance what did you think?
Well, I feel sorry for him because I never saw him get comfortable. Mm-hmm. And with a young quarterback, that's so important that he becomes comfortable. Now, give Milanovic some credit. He did move his slot backs around. He did bring in tight ends. He did bring in a fullback situation. He tried to do the right thing in terms of protection. At the same time, you've got to have the ability to move the ball down the field. And Powell was never comfortable enough where he could do that, nor were the play calls in his favor to do that. So he was dumping the ball off to the outside, taking the short underneath throws, etc. Again, a very conservative game plan, mm-hmm. Understandably so, with a new coordinator and a young quarterback. But at the same time, there comes a time in a game where, as O says, you're not going to blow anybody out with this offense. So you have to find ways to stay in the game. And that means defense and special teams helping out the offense.
Now, Coach, there was that crazy weather delay. And for a while there, everyone was wondering when the weather was going to come, the bad weather. We're all waiting for it. Have you ever seen a weather delay called before the weather actually showed up?
I think it was because of the lightning, though, that once the lightning is in the area, they have to clear the field. I mean, that's no question about that. I remember the game in Winnipeg in 2016, I think it was, where we had a delay. We started the ball game on Winnipeg's time at 7:00. And I think the next time we were on the field was like at 1:00 Winnipeg's time in the morning. Wow, the game never ended until about 2 a.m. So
it was the right decision by the CFL because the weather just came down hard. The lightning was crazy, the thunder and the rain was just insane. The second half starts, both teams come out and not a single point in the third quarter. Do you think that weather delay and sitting that long was kind of the main reason you saw both teams' offenses come out pretty cold?
Well, it's very possible that played into it. A lot of it, to me, is the fact that in a game situation, players will have their pregame meal. If it's a 7:30 kickoff, they're going to eat their pregame meal somewhere around 3:30, 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Now, when we restarted the game, if I remember right, we were around 10 o'clock in the evening. So that's 6 hours without any nutrition in your body. It really got to take its toll. And then being warm to play the game in the first half and then have to sit out for 90 minutes and come back out and get back on the field. That's very difficult for any athlete.
Yeah. No, I could imagine. I had to sneak in a hot dog in the media center. I just from sitting around waiting. So it was a weird whole scenario there, but it ended up being okay. Everyone got to play the game and there were some fans who stuck it out, which is always nice to see. Now, I think the biggest play in my opinion, that could have changed the whole momentum of this game. And you briefly touched on it in the beginning there, is that Tyreek McAllister return that gets called back for a holding call. Do you think had that counted, had there been no penalty there, this could be a whole different ball game we're talking about here today?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no question, because those kinds of returns for touchdown really elevate the play of everybody on the field. It's an exciting thing, and it really brings together the idea that you got three parts of the game: the offense, defense, and special teams. And again, that would have that one score there was, as we were talking about, the help the offense needed to get back in. You get a defensive interception for a TD or a kick return for a TD. That's a gift.
Yeah. I believe that's the second time this season. Now, I don't know if it was against Montreal, or I'm trying to think a few weeks back, but where McAllister had a big return for a touchdown that gets called back from a call during the play. Now, Coach, we are coming up with a big matchup with the BC Lions. After a game like that, in your experience, what are you saying to this locker room? What are you doing to maybe try and switch up the chemistry here? I don't know what it is, but just try and change things a bit here.
Well, it's very difficult. The first thing the coach has to do is the responsibility has to fall to the players. The players have to take responsibility for what happens on the field. I mean, the coaches can only do so much. They lead them out to the field, and once they're inside the lines of the field, it belongs to the players. And the players have to take ownership of what's going on. Now, it's a game that you have to put behind you, because, as you said, you're going to BC. BC is a very tough football team, and it's a very tough trip to go out there and play. Now, in years past, we used to call it an airlift at this time of year when it got down towards Labor Day if a team was struggling. And I remember Toronto being one of those that would just bring in all the NFL cuts that were being made and remake their team. Yeah. I don't think this is the way to do it. I think these players are on this squad, and they have to make it happen.
So do you think it's true when they say that it's a whole new season after Labor Day? Is that a true thing?
Absolutely is. It always proved to be that way. Even with coaching changes and with the coaching changes that happened on both teams in this particular game, my hope is that this doesn't domino effect, that one change doesn't result in another change. And the reason I say that is, if management all of a sudden, like the head coach, had to make that decision on the offensive coordinator, now if management has to make a decision on the head coach, now you've got a domino effect.
Yeah.
And I don't think that'll happen in Hamilton. And I have every faith in that he'll bring it back. But it's a real possibility that you got to guard against fingers being pointed. It's a matter of looking in the mirror and everybody doing a better job.
Well, Coach, I want to leave this on a positive note, if we can. Just from that game, what did you see that you liked from this Ticats roster, or a couple players on this roster?
Well, I think you got to point to Butler. I think Butler had the kind of a game that Butler was brought here to have. Again, I go back to White. White did a nice job in the receiving end of the game. Beyond those two guys, I'm remiss if I try to find somebody else, because I really can't.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on the show. And as I say every time, hopefully next week we have a win to chat about. But Coach Sal, as always, a pleasure having you on today's show. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Braden. Nice to be here.